Good morning. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and talk about, first of all, what we've seen over the last few months with the Indiana General Assembly and Governor Holcomb. And then I want to talk about what we're going to see over the next 6 months as we approach the November election for the Indiana General Assembly and the Secretary of State's office here in the state of Indiana. So first of all, let's kind of take a moment and recap just a couple of things that we've seen happen here over the last few months with the Indiana General Assembly. And I want to start by saying that any smart group of people who are trying to manipulate and control a much larger group of people usually will give the larger group of people a small tchotchke, if you will, a little trinket in order to distract them from all the other things that are going on. And I believe that the Indiana General Assembly, controlled by a Republican supermajority in both houses, did that during this past legislative session by passing an income tax cut that will take our state income tax rate from 3.23% down to 2.9% over the next 7 years. Not all at once, mind you. And by the way, if there's not enough tax revenue growth, then the annual reduction won't happen. These are little details that are often overlooked when discussing these types of things. But I think it's really, really important that we take a minute and stop and say, what does that mean to me? What does that mean to the Hoosier citizen who's out here working a job or two jobs or sometimes three jobs or more, trying to keep a roof over my family's head, keep food on the table, keep clothes and shoes on my children's ever-growing bodies? What does this tax cut really mean? Well, if you make $50,000 a year, this tax cut will eventually net you a savings of about $40 a year on your taxes. Now, let's take 3%. So if you made $100,000, 3% of that's $3,000. So if you make $50,000, 3% of that is $1,500. If you make 25, it's about $750. But let's take the $50,000 mark and say your household makes about $50,000. So you're going to pay probably around $1,500 a year in state tax, income tax. That's a little over $100 a month. Stop and think for a minute. What could you do for you and your family with an extra $100 a month? That's actually a lot of money to a lot of Hoosiers. Not everybody. Some folks, $100 a month doesn't mean that much to them, and I understand that. But I would believe that the vast majority of Hoosiers who make $50,000 a year, household income, $100 a month has value. But the state of Indiana believes that it's more important for them to have that $100 a month than it is for you. And that they deserve it. They've earned it. Why? I'm not sure. Now, there are people who have said to me, state income tax funds 40% of the state budget. Well, then we need to cut 40% of the state budget. Period. End of discussion. No, I don't mean that we should cut what people refer to as entitlements. No, there's plenty of fraud, waste, and abuse going on in our state government that would equate to about 40% of the state budget. I guarantee it. There's plenty that the state of Indiana government is doing and spending money on that is not part of the government's actual responsibilities under the state constitution. I would also tell you that while 60% of the budget is supposedly education, and that people would say to me, well, if you cut 40%, then then you would have to cut a significant amount out of the state education budget. I would look at you and say, that's awesome, let's do that. Because there's much being spent on so-called public education that has nothing to do with educating our children. And frankly, I would encourage everyone who hears my voice today, who has children in public education, to please consider taking your children out, finding an option that is more appropriate and designed for their unique educational needs than the one-size-fits-all babysitting service and social engineering efforts of the state government. But that's my personal opinion. So, first of all, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that the tax cut that the governor and the supermajority of the Indiana General Assembly provided to Hoosier citizens was nothing more than a drop in a bucket. It was nothing. It was a tchotchke, something little to make you feel like they're looking out for you, while at the same time that they're giving you this little bitty morsel of a tax cut, they're providing huge tax incentives to corporations to bring more jobs to Indiana that, according to the governor, we can't fill because we haven't educated our citizenry well enough for them to fill these high-paying jobs. All the more reason, again, to get your kid out of state government education. But the governor says we've got like 100,000 plus jobs that aren't being filled. He's trying to bring people more of these jobs, which he's providing all these tax incentives to these large corporations while making you pay state income tax. And there are, again, 9 other states don't have a state income tax. I believe Indiana should be number 10. But stop and think about what bringing these corporate jobs in, using these tax incentives, is doing to Indiana small business owners. Think about this for a minute. Because Indiana small business owners right now are struggling to find enough staffing to keep their businesses open during normal business hours. I'll just give you an example. I'm a personal fan of Wendy's. I like Wendy's, right? But the Wendy's in my area close at 6 o'clock at night because they don't have enough staffing to stay open. Think about that. And then stop and think about the other businesses that you are a patron of, and that you spend money at these businesses and you use their goods and services, but you struggle to be a customer because they struggle serving you. Have you been to the grocery store lately and stood in line because they don't have enough people to open enough registers to keep things moving? The Walmarts, the Targets, the Myers. Now, yes, those are not Indiana small businesses, and I understand that. But that impacts you as a citizen. The fact that they can't staff, but the governor of the state of Indiana does not care. All he cares about is bringing in more high-paying jobs by providing more of these corporations with huge tax incentives that you don't get, and Indiana small business owners don't get. These are the types of things that we need to look at more carefully as citizens of the state of Indiana. And we need to analyze, what is our government really doing for us? Now, I'm thrilled that they finally got off their keisters and passed a constitutional carry bill. But let me ask you a question. The people who sit in the General Assembly this year are the same people who sat in it last year. Why did they decide to do it this year when they could have done it last year? If it was the right thing to do, why did they have to wait a year to do it? Could it have anything to do with the fact that there's an election in November and they're scared to death to lose their control over you? And so they decided, well, we'll go ahead and pass this now so that we can keep our seats in the General Assembly and continue to control the distribution of the $16 billion a year Indiana state budget? I don't know, but it sure makes you think, or at least it makes me think. So these are things that, we need to talk about, we need to think about. Why is it that the Indiana General Assembly every budget year seems to raise taxes, Republican supermajority now? They raise taxes, they increase spending, and then in the election year that follows, they give you a couple of morsels, give you just a little something to nibble on, and they say, look what we did for you. Baloney. Just baloney. You know it and I know it. Now, here's the other thing that I want you to stop and think about as we approach elections in November. And I know there's a primary in May, but most of you know I'm a libertarian. We don't participate in the primaries because we don't believe that taxpayers should fund our private nomination of our candidates to run in the general election. The Republicans and Democrats, they like to use the primary as an additional marketing tool to suppress all the other possible candidates. Because here again, people ask me all the time, why don't you run in the primary? Or why don't you run as a Republican? And if you followed at all the election commission meeting that happened here about a month ago, where a bunch of liberty-minded Republican candidates who wanted to participate in the Republican primary were kicked off the ballot because the Republicans don't want them, you'd know that Republicans and Democrats tightly control who gets on the ballot under their party's moniker. And the reality is that the Republicans and the Democrats don't want liberty-minded people on their ballots. They want big government, establishment, elites who will continue the same bad government, big government, money grab, power grab, and good old boy distribution of your money that has been going on for decades. That's right, Danny Niederberger, good guy. I like Danny. Now here again, we don't agree on everything, but that's okay. That's healthy. It's good for us as citizens to have open debate and have constructive discussion about policy. I personally believe that I want government to do as little as possible. I want my individual sovereignty to take precedence over government mandates. And not every Republican agrees with that. Not every Democrat agrees with that. There are some libertarians who don't agree with that, and that's okay. Again, debate, discussion is healthy. It's valuable. But Danny Niederberger was kicked off the ballot not because he didn't get enough signatures. He was kicked off the ballot because the Indiana Republican Party didn't want him on the ballot. Plain and simple. There were people who are Republicans, the people who challenged him, not Democrats, not independents, Republicans for Todd Young. The Republicans and the Democrats do not want healthy competition. They don't want debate and discussion. They want to tell you who you can vote for. You'll vote for who we put in front of you and nobody else. And folks, that is a problem with election integrity. You want to talk about election integrity? Let's talk about the fact that there are two large groups of very wealthy people who tell you, here, choice A, choice B, that's all you get. That's a lack of election integrity. Here, we have anointed this person as the person that we want you to vote for. And all these people, we've created rules to keep them off the ballot. That's a problem with election integrity, folks. All this other stuff is coffee house, smoke-filled coffee house crap. That's what it is. All this other smoke and mirrors, because the reality is both parties have been rigging things for decades. And as long as it works to our advantage, we've looked the other way. When it doesn't work to our advantage, we yell and scream. The Democrats did it in 2016 when Trump won, and then the Republicans do it in 2020 when Biden wins. And the reality is they're both corrupt, and they both cheat, and they're not cheating each other, they're cheating you. Because you're not getting the opportunity to have real choice. It's just like with education. Oh, we'll give you a voucher in the state of Indiana and let you take that voucher to any school that we say is part of the program. That's not real choice. And your voting right now is not real choice. But it's not the Democrats that are cheating. It's not the Republicans that are cheating. It's both of them. And it's been that way for a long, long time. Now, if we want change, one of the things I like to say is if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. And folks, the reality is if you keep supporting two corrupt, old establishment, elite groups that have manipulated and lied to you for decades, if you keep supporting that, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. That's all there is to it. And I know this is going to turn a lot of people off because they don't want to hear the truth. They don't like it. I've had people say to me, well, why are you always beating up on the Republicans in Indiana? Because the Democrats are a non-issue. The Republicans have a supermajority. Everything that's wrong in Indiana right now is because of the Republicans. You don't like the price at the gas pump? Then maybe we should suspend the gas tax that the supermajority, Republican supermajority passed in, what was it, 2017? An additional 10 cents a gallon on the gas tax. Plus they've indexed it a penny for inflation every year since. So now we're up to what, 15 cents a gallon extra over what it was in 2016? But here again, nobody wants to talk about that. Oh no, it's Biden's inflation at the gas pump. No, it's not. No, it's not. Governor Holcomb and the Indiana General Assembly could call a special session tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's Sunday, pardon me. On Monday, come together and suspend the gasoline excise tax and save you a considerable amount of money. But they don't care. They want your money. They don't care what it costs you at the pump. And as a matter of fact, as long as they can get on television as a Republican Party and blame it on the Democrats, they're going to continue to pull that money out of your pocket when you need to put gas in your tank. And folks, that's just, again, a load of crap. That's all there is to it. Now, and again, I know there are going to be people who are going to get very frustrated with me because I'm bashing Republicans. But folks, if somebody's abusing you, you should call it out. And what do we do as neighbors if we see somebody in an abusive relationship that's dangerous for them? We usually try to help because we believe that it's important to get people out of abusive relationships. And I'm here sitting here today, folks, telling you that if you're still supporting the Republican Party in the state of Indiana and trying to fix them, you're in an abusive relationship and we need to help you get out because they don't care about you. They've got you right where they want you. They've got you convinced that you have a voice and that you can fix them. And the reality is they're not broken. See, you can't fix something that works as designed and intended. One of the things as a software engineer for 20 some years that I've always talked about is, somebody will tell me, well, this is broken. And when I go look at it, I go, no, it works as designed and intended. May not work the way you want it to. And I'm sorry for that. But it works the way that it was designed, and it works the way that it is intended. And ladies and gentlemen, Hoosier citizens, friends, the Indiana Republican Party in your Indiana state government works as designed and intended by them. And if you don't like it, you can't fix them. You have to get them out of there. And in 2022, you have the opportunity to do that. It's plain and simple. You will never get enough truly liberty minded, good, small government candidates on the Republican ballot to fix what is designed and intended to work the way it works today. I've used the analogy before. If you have a poisoned well, then you need to stop dipping into that poisoned well and you need to go find a new well. Now, whether that's an independent candidate or a libertarian candidate, it's time to find a new well. The unfortunate reality is the Indiana GOP runs as designed and intended, and you're not going to change that, no matter how hard you try. So I support liberty-minded candidates. And I've had people reach out to me and say, this individual is a liberty-minded candidate. They're running in the Republican primary. Will you support them? I can't. I want to, but I will not prop up an organization that I believe is designed to abuse and misuse the citizens of the state of Indiana for their own benefit. It's plain and simple. That's why I joined the Libertarian Party. That's why I'm still a member of the Libertarian Party. And that's why I will continue to be a member of the Libertarian Party, as long as the Libertarian Party doesn't become as corrupt and self-serving as the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. Because to me, what's important is our individual liberty and our freedom. And the idea that where we may not agree with each other on everything, as long as you don't hurt me or take my stuff, I want you to be able to live the life that you choose. I want you to make the choices that you believe are right. I like to tell people, and it sounds funny, but I'm absolutely serious. Real freedom, true liberty, is the ability to be as stupid as you want to be, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else or their stuff, their property. If you want to go out here and eat fast food and drink booze and do whatever, and you wreck your health and you have to pay a doctor and a hospital, that's on you. People say, well, but if you let people do that, then it raises all of our health insurance. Health insurance sucks, right? Because, and why does health insurance suck? Because government regulates things. Government has their hands in it. You see, we need to open our minds. We need to expand our understanding of what's possible. See, I want people to have the opportunity to choose what health care, we talk about medical freedom today. You know what real medical freedom is? I'll decide when I go to the doctor. I'll decide whether the doctor knows what he's talking about or not. And the doctor and I will decide what medical treatments I need. And insurance companies and the government can stay the hell out of it. Period. And if you want to see costs go down, quit letting government overregulate and quit letting insurance companies and other large corporations influence the government to create regulations that benefit them and suppress innovation and suppress new small businesses from coming into the market and providing opportunity and service to the citizens. Now, I apologize, I'm rambling a little bit, I'm unpacking a lot, and I get that. But I want you, we've got to start thinking like individually sovereign people. We have to start thinking about, just because it's always been this way doesn't mean that's the way it should be. And people will say, oh, you're a libertarian, you want poor people to die in the street. Well, you know what? That's actually BS. What I want is for government to stop restricting private charitable organizations from sprouting up and helping people, really helping people. When homeless people can't sleep in the basement of a church because the government says you don't have a permit to do that, that's dog crap. When an organization can't put together boxed lunches or bag lunches and go out and hand it out to people who are in the streets because the government says you don't have a permit to serve food, that's just wrong. It's wrong. So don't look at me and say, as a libertarian, you don't care. Libertarians care. I care. But what I care about is giving people who can help the opportunity to help. Same with education. And I'm going to pound on this probably for the next 2 years. Now, I don't know if you know what's coming up in 2 years, but I'll just let you assume that what you're thinking about is what I'm thinking about. But for the next 2 years, I'm going to pound on the fact that the more government is involved in education, the less educational opportunity there is for our children, and we have to reverse that trend. We need to get government out of education, and we need to provide a pathway for innovation and for people who have the passion to educate children to be able to provide the funding for non-government accredited schools where a child's unique educational needs can be met as determined by their parents, not some bureaucrat sitting down at the septic tank at 200 West Washington Street who's only interested in making sure that there's money provided to one of his vendor buddies who's going to provide a standardized test that doesn't test anything. Pardon me. Folks, I know I've gone on now for about 35 minutes, and people always tell me your videos are too long. I get it. But you know what? There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot going wrong. And we're feeding the wrong beast. We need to feed the concept of individual sovereignty, individual responsibility, individual decision making. I know what's right for me, and if I don't, that's my problem. I don't need government telling me. And I've come to here's the reality. Think about this for a minute. Do you really need to have to play Simon Says or Mother May I with every decision you make in your life? Now, I've had people say, oh, so you believe that we shouldn't have to get driver's licenses to drive a car? Yep, that's what I believe. We shouldn't have to have driver's licenses to drive a car. You shouldn't need to go to the government every 6 years and say, can I please continue to drive my car? That's just, it makes no sense to me. How does the government, who in the government makes that decision? And how did they get the authority and the knowledge to make that decision? How do you know that the requirements that the government has set out in order to provide you with a license or a permit to drive a car, how do you know those people know what they're doing? Think about that for a minute. Just think about it for just a minute. Fishing license. Oh, somebody needs to oversee the public waterways. Well, maybe we don't need public waterways. Maybe what we need is better education. Maybe we need to make sure that the one thing that government does is enforce property rights, and that government shouldn't own property. Now, here again, I tell folks all the time, and I understand, it's taken 240 years for us to get this as screwed up as it is. And people say, oh, big corporations would pollute. And yes, I know. We have to have certain common sense regulations to keep certain things from happening. I get that. We need laws that say if you murder somebody, you're going to prison. I get it, right? I don't have a problem with that. But when the government says you have to come and ask me permission to fish or hunt and pay me a fee for it, I say, who put you in charge? And they say, oh, well, you did. No, I didn't. No, nobody ever came and asked me. You did that all yourselves. And that's the other thing I want you to stop and think about. Government does more than what it was designed to do in this country. The founding fathers didn't want a government where you had to say, Mother May I. They didn't want a government that said Simon Says. But what we've done is we've abdicated our responsibility as individually sovereign citizens. And we have allowed ourselves to become subjects of the state of Indiana and of the United States of America. And so today I'm going to ask you, take a breath, stop and think. Is this really freedom? Is this really liberty? And then I'm going to ask you to do something else. I'm going to ask you to go to my website, our PAC's website, libertyisessential.us /donate. And I'm going to ask you to donate some money to help me safeguard your individual sovereignty. Because the reality is the Republican Party and the Democrat Party aren't getting it done. They're not doing it. They don't care about your individual sovereignty. But I do. And I'll tell you why I do. Because if I don't protect yours, I can't protect mine. Now, that may sound selfish, but that's what individual sovereignty is. The idea that if I'm going to protect my own rights, I have to protect your rights too, even if it's the right to do something I don't agree with. But I can't do this by myself. There are liberty-minded candidates all over the state of Indiana who want to bring change. But they don't know how to bring change because they're not professional politicians. They don't have the big Republican or Democrat machines behind them, pushing them to victory. And I've heard people say, well, you can't win as a libertarian. And folks, the reality is the only reason a libertarian can't win is because we haven't figured out how to get enough people to realize that the simple math is whoever gets the most votes wins. And if enough people vote for the right thing instead of, well, I want to vote for a winner. I've heard that till it makes me want to puke. Well, I want to be a winner, so I vote Republican. And I'm sorry, that's stupid. I'm going to vote for my abuser because I want to be a winner. You're not a winner. They're a winner. But you're not, because you're voting for them to win and to continue to abuse you. And if you don't think you're being abused by our state government, you need to look at your paycheck. And you need to look at your property taxes. Oh, we capped it at 1%. That's a bald-faced lie. They capped 1% of the assessed value, and every year they raise your assessed value so they can continue to raise your taxes. And if you don't stop and take a look at that and wake up and go, oh, they're a bunch of lying sons of bitches, I don't know what to tell you. Now, again, if I hurt your feelings, I apologize. I'm sorry, but I'm not. Right? It's like the Reese's commercial. Sorry, not sorry. Because this is the truth. They are taking advantage of you. They are lying to you. They are telling you half-truths. They are giving you just enough so that you will continue to vote for them and think that you're a winner because you're voting for the winner. And then they raise your taxes. They spend your money on stuff that does not benefit you. In many cases, if you're an Indiana small business owner, they're spending money to put you out of business. But you're going to keep voting for them. It's time it stopped now. 2022 is the time that change must happen. And we start that by getting the election integrity back in the state of Indiana. And I believe that we can do that if we all vote for the Libertarian candidate, Jeff Maurer. Because if Jeff Maurer is as successful and gets the same vote totals that I got in the governor's race in 2020, we will see a significant change in how election boards in the counties do things, because we'll be able to put some libertarians on some election boards in some counties. Folks, I need your help. I not only need your moral support, I love it when people say, I voted for you, or they say, I'm going to vote for you next time. I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that support. But right now, I need you to donate money to Liberty is Essential PAC at libertyisessential.us/donate, or you can go to libertyisessential.com and click on the donate button and donate money so I can help liberty-minded candidates get the Indiana General Assembly in November. We need to bust up this supermajority with some real liberty-minded people. And the only way we can do that is with your help. So thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time. Those of you who watched, the whole spiel here, thank you so much. I appreciate it. For those of you who watch part of it and see this part, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I need your help. And I really look forward to a significant change in 2022. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.